I got sick, stayed sick for several months, and later got better and went back to school. Went back to school up through the 11th grade. And I was out 1 year because of sickness. We, in the meantime, had moved to Greensboro for a short while in Greensboro and then to Wilmington. And I had one more year of high school. And while we were in Wilmington, I finished high school, but once again I was sick and had to miss my final exams. I guess it didn't bother me to miss the final exams, and it didn't seem to bother the teachers because I had been on the honor roll every month during that period. About the only boy in the high school that got to be on the honor roll every report period. But the reason was that they had initiated a military program in the school, and one day they had a slappy review, and
what's a slappy review?
That's a sloppy review. It had a sloppy marching and did poorly, and so the major didn't make any of them with a passing grade. Excuse me.
You can look at me when you're talking. You take a break?
All right.
Take a break, or are you okay?
Well, let's take a break.
Okay.
See if this is.
All right, and you can look at me. You don't have to.
All right. Well, I don't think the exciting moments of my life began in Thomasville. It was a fun thing to be able to go out, go swimming in the ponds with the kids in the country. My father's 6 churches were in the country, and he stayed very busy. Went to 3 prayer meetings every week, so that twice a month he was in all the churches. And then we moved from there to.
How did he get to those meetings?
He had an automobile. This was one of his big expenses was an automobile. He always, during the Depression, some of my buddies whose fathers lived in pretty nice houses didn't have an automobile. Their work didn't require it, and they didn't have it. So, but he had an automobile. It was interesting. The people who couldn't get money together for a car would. I'm thinking the audience was applauding me on that, and that.
They were applauding you? Tell them to leave you alone.
Anyway, I'm sorry about that break.
That's all right.
But we moved from Thomasville which had a very nice school. I was in 2 good schools in Thomasville, Colonial Drive and Main Street, and went on to Greensboro. In Greensboro, I went to what they call senior high. It later became known as Grimsley. It was a very good school, and I went there 1 year and was on their honor roll for those months. We moved from there. Well, before that, while we were at Greensboro, I went swimming in a YMCA pool. Caught a cold and had pneumonia, and it just never healed up. And I had to drop out of school. I was out of school 1 year. During that year, we moved to Wilmington. And Wilmington had a fine school known as New Hanover High School, and that was my graduating school. That's the school I graduated from. Although I only went there 1 year, I still go to the reunions and have friends who were my age, including David Brinkley, the radio TV celebrity.
So was moving around hard on you? Was moving around hard on you?
Moving around was not really hard on me, except maybe I remember some hard days when we first moved to Thomasville. I was a little slow about moving from the upstairs window where I watched the kids of the neighborhood to out to the street where we skated. And I made friends that way, but there were 2 or 3 weeks where I didn't know them, they didn't know me, and neither of us were brave enough to break the silence. And so it took a little while for me to get broken in there. At Wilmington, it didn't matter. I was in bed anyway when we moved to Wilmington, and I had made friends before I ever went back to school. I had friends in school, a lot of them that I think a lot of even now. And so that was where I graduated. And got sick again about graduation time. They didn't require me to take my final exams because I was sick, but they graduated me anyway. And then we moved from Wilmington to Greensboro.
Back to Greensboro.
I'm sorry, not back, it was to Durham. It was from Wilmington to Durham. And in Durham, my father had a nice church that has since gone out of business. And it was known as Branson Memorial. We had a lot of friends. My father stayed there probably 7 years. And during that time, I enrolled at Duke University. But before that, I went to Boston for an unusual operation in those days. It was a lung removal, a lobectomy. Half of my left lung they took out, and that year would have been about 1939. 38, I guess, was when I went into the hospital in December 38, but it was 39 before I got home from Boston, where I had the surgery. And then I spent 4 years in the Duke undergraduate school with a major in English. I worked some in the library to help pay my expenses, and enjoyed working in the library, always did. And I worked with them for 7 years. And in those 7 years, I finished
You can look at me.
also the divinity school degree. And at the close of that year, I was president of the student body in the Duke Divinity School. That would have been the year of 1946. So when I left that year, 46, I had a place to preach as a preacher. I was going through the necessary requirements and those meeting them all. And so my first appointment was in Kenansville.